The Chinese were clearly the big winners in the summit of the century, the meeting between U.S. President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in the island city-state of Singapore, through which about a third of the world's shipping moves to and from ports in Japan, South Korea, China, Hong Kong, too. China's Foreign Minister, Wang Yi, was overjoyed about the results, in which Trump said the United States might eventually withdraw its troops from South Korea and called off annual military exercises. It is fair to say that the relevant approach and initiative proposed by China, said Wang, played a positive and constructive role in getting the situation on the peninsula to where it is now. Indeed, if there was any individual winner, besides Kim, that honor had to go to China's President Xi Jinping. With an abrupt drawdown in U.S. strength in the south, and maybe Japan as well, the Chinese would have clear sailing ahead for expanding influence and authority in East Asia, from the Korean Peninsula to the South China Sea. The Japanese, not unexpectedly, took quote a different view. Considering that Japan remains well within range of North Korea's mid- and short-range missiles, the security implications were obvious, as Defense Minister Itsunori Onodera pointed out. Watch, Kim commits to denuclearization and Trump pledges security guarantees at historic meeting in Singapore. Why Trump-Kim handshake is no symbol of peace, but fuel for North Korea's brutal regime. The drills and the U.S. military stationed in South Korea play a vital role in East Asia's security, said Onodera, hoping to share this recognition between Japan and the U.S., or among Japan, U.S. and South Korea. Those contrasting responses reflected both China's delight in seeing a chance to expand its influence in Northeast Asia and Japan's anxiety over the prospect of the U.S. abandoning the region militarily. After the summit, Trump said he hoped someday that the U.S. could pull most of its 28,500 troops from the Korean Peninsula. He did not talk about America's 50,000 troops in Japan, most of them at bases in Okinawa, but the inference was clear: the Japanese might finally have to do away with Article 9 of their peace constitution, and build up their military establishment in defense, not only against China but also against North Korea, whose missiles can hit targets anywhere in Japan. Will U.S.-North Korea deal leave Japan, South Korea vulnerable? Trump raised fears in a rambling press conference after the summit, in which he said he was calling off the annual military exercises that North Korea has been denouncing as provocative, or worse, for years. Trump clearly agreed, saying they were not only provocative but expensive. It's difficult to believe that Trump's hawkish national security advisor, John Bolton, and his Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, both of whom were with Trump in the summit discussion, would have endorsed Trump's abrupt cancellation of military exercises. Nor would Secretary of Defense Jim Mattis, who had been in Singapore a week earlier for the Shangri-La Dialogue, an annual gathering of defense ministers, have favored the idea. Trump, with no experience in Asia and no background in the armed forces, seemed unaware of what he was doing. China, as the real beneficiary, would be able to spread its influence over Northeast Asia, threatening an old enemy, Japan. Beijing would also be able to solidify its advances in the South China Sea, almost all of which it claims. U.S. planes and warships might challenge Chinese control even as the Chinese build up bases on the Spratly Islands, but U.S. authority would dwindle rapidly as Trump made good on his general view that U.S. forces are not needed in Korea or, probably, Japan. Donald Trump searches for a lasting foreign policy legacy at summit with Kim Jong-un in Singapore. The Chinese, under Xi, dream of expanding their influence from East Asia to the Indian Ocean, and possibly beyond. They have built a road across the Himalayas to Pakistan, giving them access to Gwadar, the Pakistani port on the Arabian Sea that Chinese engineers and technicians have turned into an international cargo terminal. The ultimate dream is to expand power from the Korean Peninsula and the Yellow Sea, across the Indian Ocean to the Middle East. Trump, yielding to Kim at the summit, appeared totally unaware of the gift he was bestowing not just on the North Korean leader but on Xi, whom he praised as his good friend. Clearly, Kim had decided to meet Trump at the summit with the encouragement of Xi, whom he had seen twice in recent months, first in Beijing and then in Dalian. On the basis of Kim's conversation with Trump, Xi solidified his relationship with North Korea, allaying suspicions that perhaps China was really on the side of the U.S. on the nuclear question. Since Kim is not likely to be testing nukes and missiles for some time, she is now able to assure him of China's full support of his dream of economic development. Watch, Kim Jong-un meets Xi Jinping in surprise China summit. Trump's giveaways to North Korea are a sign of the U.S. diminishing presence on the world stage. On the basis of this success, North Korea can expect relief from sanctions, which China is no longer enforcing as it had, reluctantly, since the most severe sanctions were imposed after the North's sixth and last nuclear test last September. Kim stands to be rewarded by the Chinese even as Trump believes, foolishly, that he has struck up a new relationship with the one whom he once reviled as Little Rocket Man. Clearly, Kim had not been altogether mistaken to have denounced Trump in those days as a dotard, a strange word that means an old man in his dotage, slightly out of his mind and out of touch. Donald Kirk is the author of 3 books and numerous articles on Korea.